All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today, we're going to be reviewing just an absolutely incredibly epic and well-written piece of spy thriller espionage type novel, and that is The Little Drummer Girl by John Le Carre. Just an absolute fantastic. I mean, I can't get over how much I loved this book. This is my second time I've read it. I remember reading it, some 25, 30 years ago and just being like, okay, that was a book. But my God, rereading it is just absolute sheer brilliance. Now, I also know that there's a movie starring Diane Keaton of the same title based off of this book. I think I vaguely remember watching it way back when I first read this book in the late 90s. But the movie was filmed in the 80s. I Googled the trailer for it and watched it on YouTube, and it just it didn't look interesting to me. Or very well done. If you've seen the movie with Diane Keaton, is it every bit as good as the book? I don't know. I also noticed that they just recently made a BBC miniseries based off of this, starring some people that we know, like the girl from Black Widow, not the Scarlett Johansson one, but the sister of the Black Widow. That girl's been in a lot of movies. But anyway, she was in the remake of the BBC version of this. If you've seen that one, let me know, because I want to know if that one's good too. So anyway, the cover first. I love graphic design and cover illustration. I think this has got a cool cover. I like the shiny, dope blue font here. I like the guy sitting in the theater with the roses. Very symbolic of what's happening in the book. The book was written in 1983. Now, John Le Carre is one of my favorite writers. I've got all of his novels down there. And we've been reading and reviewing all of his novels in order of publication. So we're doing this in order of publication, and we're already to The Little Drummer Girl. So we're almost halfway through reading and reviewing his entire catalog of books. So in the intro to this book, let's get into the book now. In the intro to this book, Le Carre discusses his research trips to both Israel and Palestine and meeting with the leaders of both countries as research for this book, which is literally based off of the Israel-Palestine, conflict that was going on. I mean, it's been always going on, well, at least since the 1940s. But this one is set in 1983, so this is about the Israeli conflict and the Palestinian conflict back in the early 80s. Oh shit, we'll edit this out. My notes just fell. We're going to tape them back up to the mic stand. We'll edit all that out. So he explains in his intro to the book, the author explains that the book over the years has been called pro-Palestinian, anti-Palestinian, pro-Israeli, anti-Israeli, anti-Semitic, anti-Palestinian. The novel has certainly highlights, well, as I read this for myself, just to kind of get my own opinion on all of this, the novel certainly highlights the hatred of both sides equally. I would explain, just after reading the book and the intro to the book that Le Carre wrote, he clearly came down on the side of the experiences of the Palestinians. I would say he leans pro-Palestinian mostly as you read this book and you glean what you can from the introduction. But anyway, the book starts out in Bonn, Germany, with an explosion of a house that belongs to the Israeli labor attaché, whatever that is. But anyway, his house goes exploding, and it's a terrorist attack. And now we've got some people that want to figure out why these terrorist attacks are happening. Are they Palestinian? What's going on? Are they something else? Are they, all the different types of people in the 80s that were blowing each other up? My notes fell again. I'm just going to have to keep editing a lot of stuff out of this. I mean, it's just crazy. Anyway, So Charlie and Joseph, they are our main characters. Charlie is an actress. She's married to an abusive husband. Joseph is handsome, always, he's just like a handsome guy. And they meet in Mykonos, Greece. Um, Charlie is this actress, and she is on vacation with her pals and her husband, and yada yada yada. Now this guy Joseph, this extremely handsome, dashingly handsome man, tall and handsome, he conveniently is sort of just around Charlie and her pals, yet mysteriously kind of like vaguely aloof a lot of the times. But he's so handsome that Charlie and her pals just can't help but notice him everywhere he is. And he's so handsome they can't just help go out of their way to befriend him. And but Joseph is, of course, is running a con on these people in a way. He's always, I mean, he's got alternative motives, alternate motives, alternative. I for some reason that word is not working for me today. He's got motives that are alternative. Anyway, this is a planned seduction / recruitment of Charlie. Joseph has specifically set his eyes upon her because he's got a mission, and this is what he's doing. Now, Charlie, the actress, she is an actress I mentioned, she is going to be recruited by Joseph to do something. Now, Charlie, as an actress, one of the fun things about this book is we get many discussions on the acting trade, which is important to this book because she's going to be asked to take upon a role of a lifetime, a dangerous role. And not like for a movie or a play, but a different thing. Now, we get a lot of discussions on the acting trade, the acting professions, actors and how their moods, their angst, their hang-ups, their politics, their shyness, their smallness, and how most of the actors and actresses in Hollywood have a driving need to be involved in radical causes and extreme causes and liberal causes. And it's because of a self-obsession that they've got. They just want to be seen as good people. So they're obsessed with this kind of, I want to be involved in a good cause. Now, Joseph can kind of sense this in Charlie and the people that are trying to figure out why these terrorist bombings are going on can sense, and they're like, we need Charlie, this actress, to do something for us. So Joseph lures her away from her friends with intentions far from romantic. I mean, it's a twisted book. Now, Joseph is actually an Israeli intelligence officer, and Charlie is kind of wooed and manipulated into helping him flush out the leader of a Palestinian terrorist group responsible for all the bombings, all the deadly bombings. And Charlie, is throughout the book, is unsure of where her allegiances really lie and if she can play this role of a lifetime and suss out these terrorist organizations. And you can imagine the tension and thriller novel type of danger and all of that kind of ensue once this plot unfolds. And basically, I didn't say any more about the plot than is kind of hinted at here in the back. But it's one of the most easily readable and easy to follow of Le Carre's books. I mean, he can be a pretty dense and complicated writer, and you really got to pay attention to what's going on, especially in stuff like Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy. He leaves a lot of things vague and for the reader to figure out. This one is a little more spelled out. He really kind of guides the reader through the story, so you're never really quite lost or wondering what's going on. You're always kind of in on it. If I were to recommend a Le Carre novel for someone who's never read Le Carre, I'd probably recommend this one just because it is the most straightforward sort of thriller novel without all of the literary flair that Le Carre really puts into it, although it's in here. It is in here. The writing is gorgeous. Some of the passages in here are just blew me away. However, this is easier to read than I'd say most of his books. And so I would actually tell people to start with this one because it isn't a novel you really have to figure out on your own, if that makes sense. And if you've read Le Carre, you know what I'm talking about. But this is a 10 out of 10 thriller for me. I devoured every word of it in my recent reread. It took me about 3 days because I was really taking it slow. This book is about 500 pages. No, yeah, it's 500 exactly. Usually that would take me about 5-6 hours because I can read about 100 pages an hour. But I really took this one slower, and it took me about 3 days. But anyway, that is The Little Drummer Girl